entre le live YouTube et Zoom. Je pense qu'on est live normalement. Peut-être que Florent, on peut avoir une petite confirmation de ta part, mais ouais, on est live. OK.
Okay, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, I can hear you well, Blair.
Okay, I think we are live then.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're live. Okay, welcome everyone to the iExec Ask Me Anything question and answer session. Just to give a little bit of context, so I think this is the first time we've been live since last November. It's just after DevCon and just before the iExec V4 release. So under the circumstances, it's been a little bit more difficult to, be together in the same room, but thanks to the wonders of our technology, we're here for you today, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. I'm just double checking the YouTube to see everything is streaming properly. So yeah, we're at an interesting stage of development at the moment, kind of where most of the technical features outlined in the white paper back in 2017 have been delivered, and we're at the stage, a new stage of iExec, let's go-to-market stage and adoption phase of iExec. So something that's really exciting for us, and we've got V5 coming this year. Luckily, we have Adrian with us today, and we can go dive into a few of the technicalities of that. So yeah, so this will be a little bit of an informal presentation of our approach for the years to come and our immediate roadmap as well. Sometimes we're at events where we're able to discuss these sort of things, whereas there's a lot of followers of iExec online, and we don't really get the opportunity to discuss in the same way like that. So this is a chance to do that, and yeah, just to see what the community is interested in and have a little discussion. So I'll give a quick introduction to iExec first. So iExec is a decentralized cloud computing. We have a blockchain-based marketplace for cloud computing resources. So that's applications, data sets, and computing power. So a lot of our work is on providing off-chain computation for Ethereum applications, off-chain computing, and off-chain data. So we're very specialized also in confidential computing. If you're completely new to iExec and you're just joining us, I highly recommend you go to watch our introduction video. It's a 2-minute introduction to very general iExec and animated video to iExec. And yeah, so you can check out on our website or our blog and our technical documentation. So thanks everyone over on our subreddit that submitted their questions. A lot of them did cover the same subjects, but we'll surely touch on all the topics that did come up. So without further ado, I think there's quite a few people joined us now. We'll go on to the introductions of all the team members. So I'll start with myself. I'm Blair, the community manager and communications at iExec. So I'll be doing the animating of this. And to answer most of the questions, firstly, we have Gilles. Gilles, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Gilles Quebec. I'm CEO, co-founder of iExec. So thanks, Blair, for the introduction and the presentation of iExec.
Okay, and after we have Adrian.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm Adrian, you might know me. I'm a research engineer at iExec in charge of the smart contracts.
And finally, Victor, are you there? Victor, we can't hear you.
Hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now. Just introduce yourself.
So yeah, I was saying, so I'm Victor, I'm asset manager at iExec. I'm following closely everything that is related to the RC token, so including regulation, custody, exchange listings, and so forth. Thanks everyone for joining the AMA, and thanks Blair for the introduction.
Okay, so we'll dive straight into the questions then. So the first one we have is quite general. So it's saying, what is the roadmap and the plan after the white paper, the original white paper that we wrote in 2017? What is the plan for kind of the years to come? Gilles, I guess you're the best person to answer that one.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, you just mentioned, the iExec is at a turning point now. So basically, we had a white paper, that was used during the ICO, and that white paper had basically a technical roadmap. And somehow, at this moment, we are close to the end of this roadmap, in the sense that adding new features will not change things radically. So our focus now is not about proposing new features that would be super cool. What we want is really to focus on adoption. So there are two kinds of adoption. One is the adoption for the public marketplace, and the other one is adoption by the enterprises. And the two are totally linked. You can't have volume on the public marketplace if no companies are using the iExec software stack. So the way we're going to address those two issues forces us to change the way we have developed iExec now. And what we don't want is a kind of new roadmap, something that will draw a line for the next 5 years. What we want is to be much more reactive, much more agile and data-driven. And we want really to have all the development focusing on those two issues. And we want to select, we want to have a kind of dynamic roadmap that addresses all these challenges. So we have worked a lot on that during those past, let's say, 4 or 5 months. And so what's missing now is, I would say, a way to communicate about the developments. This is why there is basically this sort of vacuum now, because we don't really communicate about things that will come because it's not totally yet decided.
Blair, we can hear you this time.
Okay, thank you, Gilles, for this overview. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. We're moving into a new phase. It's kind of the adoption phase or the go-to-market phase. Now that we have the core iExec stack, everything is finished. So maybe just talk about a question that is about the more immediate future. I'll give this one to Adrien. So it's saying V5 will change some of the smart contracts. Why is this important? And can you explain it in simple terms? So just a little bit about V5, Adrien.
Yeah, so you might have noticed my latest article on the blog. Also, I updated the POCO repository on GitHub yesterday, so some of the most technical among the viewers might have noticed that as well. And indeed, we are coming with a new smart contract for version 5. And I think this is, as I said in my article, it's preparing for the future that Gilles just discussed. It's like we're no longer be having one version after the other. It will more be about implementing new feature on the fly to reach adoption. And this is where our new smart contracts are necessary, because they have built-in modularity and upgradability. So we will be able to add functionality without having to redeploy everything and migrate. And that will help us consolidate the community around this single point that will be the place where people will most likely be holding their token when they want to use it in the platform. So it comes with many new features. Assets are NFTs. You can do exchanges of staked RLCs on this platform. You don't have to go through an exchange, so it can be pretty useful. There is the upgradability in mind, and there are a lot of few small tricks, like the one transaction deposit. You will no longer need to do authorize, then deposit my token. You can move your token from your wallet to this smart contract to use them on the platform very smoothly. So yeah, it's all about user experience and preparing for the future.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Adrien. And also, yeah, ending on that note of talking about preparing for the future, I've got another one for you here. Will we ever see a DAO to vote on iExec, so decentralized autonomous organization. Could that be something that we could see with iExec?
Yeah, that's something that we are very interested in. And as I said, like the new smart contract will be upgradable. So there will be like an administration authority that will allow for new features to go into the protocol. Obviously, this can potentially be a risk if the features are nasty. So we will secure, obviously, this mechanism, upgradability mechanism for the early future. But at some point, we want to delegate that to the community, have the community involved into what features they want to adopt, what features they don't want to. And basically, we will just be proposing new mechanisms that people will vote on. And only if there is a vote from the community through a DAO, then the features will get pushed into the smart contract and be available for everyone to use. So obviously, this is something that will take time because we want to do it the right way. It's governance of a platform. We have been focusing on building the upgradability. Building the DAO is another thing that will be on top of that. So it will take a small time to happen, but yeah, that's one of the objectives we want to build in the near future. Or maybe not near, but not so far future.
Yeah, that's true. But if you go to the so anyone listening, if they go to the latest article in the POCO series, you'll see the section that Adrian has written for upgradability. And yeah, that's basically going to make things like the DAO possible in the future. So I'll move on to the next question. Quite a simple one. Is it possible to sell computing power today?
Yeah, so if I can
become a worker,
like it's possible. Our documentation is updated pretty frequently, and if you go to docs.iexec, so iex.ec, docs.iex.ec, you will be able to find all the necessary documentation on how to run your worker, how to join a worker pool, how to be part of the platform.
Okay, perfect. So I've got another one on workers. Someone's asking if there will ever be a worker on Android. Can we?
So this might happen at some point, but it's definitely not our objective for the time being. The thing is, smart and mobile devices are very particular, and one of the things is they have limited battery. So if we start doing extensive computation on them, we will just drain the battery. That's basically what's going to happen. Also, the connectivity is not that reliable. So when there are timings and transactions that you have to do, otherwise you get punished in the POCO system, it might not be the best devices to run the iExec on right now. The thing is, we already have access to a very large sets of machine with the current software that is not smartphone compatible, unfortunately. And we don't see that many use case for our current vision of the machines, where the locality and the distribution. It's interesting in terms of decentralization, but it's not like we are going to send something to your smartphone to ping your local neighborhood and basically know where you are. This is not something we want to do. So I don't really see a point to Android phones being workers for now. Maybe in the IoT grand scheme of things, it will happen sooner rather than later, but it's not our focus.
One thing I can add about this this topic is that as a worker, I don't think it really makes sense, as Adrien mentioned, but as a requester, I think it does. And actually, that's something we are looking at, and we have already some POC on that with different kind of collaborators. And here, of course, you understand that, you know, from your smartphone, you could build a trusted data set, you could trigger trusted off-chain execution, etc., etc. And here, I think it makes much more sense.
Okay. So the next question I had in front of me was, so yeah, this one was based a little bit on communication, so I can answer this one. And it was asking about why always the pre-announced rolled up version releases. So I guess that's referring to the launch days that we have always set for V1, V2, iExec, V4. So we have always had these well-defined launch dates, and for us, this was because these milestones were always outlined in the roadmap since day one, since 2017. So yeah, this was very important to us to show that we were sticking to this roadmap, you know, for our reputation, and also, yeah, just to show that even we were in advance in some cases, ahead of the roadmap. It's also kind of, it did generate quite a lot of interest from media during these, you know, release dates that have a lot of significance put on them. So for me, I believe this is one of the reasons that iExec name is still relevant today, because there has been a lot of excitement around these release dates. But yeah, I would say that considering this, now that the roadmap is kind of, the technical features have been put on the table, they've been delivered. As we move forward with the roadmap and the V1, V2, V3 releases are not so significant, we will be considering changing how we communicate on milestones and our roadmap. So it's a good point, but it was really quite important for us to show that we were ahead and sticking to the plan from the beginning. So yeah, that's just a word on that one. So the next one, being listed on Binance is extremely relevant. So it is important to get listed on other big exchanges, so other than Binance, I imagine. Any comments on this one, Victor?
Yeah, I guess that one is for me. Well, so yeah, that's a good question, and I think first off, it's important to recall that the exchange ecosystem changed a lot over the last years from a regulation perspective. So before, there was kind of a global market area, basically including all of the world's countries. And as an exchange, you would just provide your platform services to the entire world. But nowadays, it's a completely different story, as many countries issued regulatory guidelines at the nation level. So that's why the exchange market is now divided into global and some countries like Japan, Korea, Singapore. Singapore actually just voted the Payment Service Act in January, so 3 months ago, and the US, of course. And in the US, it's even more complicated, as exchanges need to apply actually at the state level for a what's called a money transmitter license, which basically requires the exchange to deposit a certain amount of money in exchange for a bond called an MTB, and that can cost as high as $1 million. And you got 50 states in the US. So except in New York, where actually it's a bit different, you need a bit license, what's called a bit license. And now, in parallel to how regulation impacted centralized exchanges all over the world, there is a new kind of exchanges that gained a lot of traction in 2019, and these are decentralized exchanges, or DEX. And a short word on the DEX. What makes them very attractive is that they operate 100% from the Ethereum blockchain, which is a world where you don't need to apply for a license to exchange digital assets, as crypto is kind of the native currency there, right? So to kind of wrap it up and back to the question, our goal regarding the listing strategy is to reach citizens and potential users of all these different geographic areas or all these different jurisdictions, including the blockchain with DEX, of course. And regarding decentralized exchanges, we've seen a tremendous amount of RLC liquidity being added to on-chain liquidity pools, especially over the last year, making it easier for smart contracts to manipulate the RLC token, which is a key to protocol adoption. That's very important. But it's also attracting more and more traders who are using DEX aggregators, for instance, to kind of split their orders and execute them over many different DEX. So you get minimal slippage, and the user experience is actually a snap. It's really good. You can try it. In my opinion, it's actually way better than centralized exchanges. Now, centralized exchanges are still where most of the volume is made, and they are very important to us. Regarding Binance, I think it proved to be the right venue to have the RLC listed on. Over the last year, there was more than $1 million of daily volume on average, I think. So, and you saw actually Binance adding the USDT pair last year, which was kind of their way to reward, I'd say, the RLC trading community, who has been very active. So that's a good thing. So why it would be nice to have another kind of serious and big exchange covering the global area, and we have a few concrete options there. I think, I mean, we are more actively working on listing the RLC on big exchanges in other parts of the world where the RLC is currently not easily accessible, and that would make, in my opinion, a bigger impact, resulting in a better use of the project's time and the project's money. So here I'm thinking of course, about the US, about Korea, about Japan, and so on.
Perfect. Yes, thanks, Victor. Yeah, so they're both very important to us, both centralized and decentralized. I just saw someone in the chat who was talking about don't need Binance. I got my tokens on Kyber network. So can be just a question of taste in that case. I'll stick with some questions about the token, Victor, if you're still with us. So you did mention other countries, but it was just asking for an update on Korea pairing.
Yeah. So about Korean pair. So yeah, the KRW pair. So long story short, we spent considerable time and energy actioning the right lever at one famous Korean exchange. I personally visited Seoul last year, partly for this reason. But around the time we were told that our application for the KRW pair listing was being reviewed, sadly, that exchange got hacked. That's pretty sad story, not only for the RC holders who wanted to see the KRW pair, but also for the exchange and for its users who lost around, I think it's about $50 million. So that's a huge amount of money. And since then, the exchange never really recovers. So that explains why we had to start the process over with other exchanges in Korea. But we know the interest of the Korean community and its appetite for the RLC. The KRW pair remains very strategic for the project. And well, thanks for your patience. We are actively working on that.
Okay, thanks, Victor. And for RLC being a utility token, any progress on the US side of things?
US market, well, that's another big question. Getting listed in the US is very, very challenging. And I'd say it's not really a question of money, or to be more exact, it's not a question of listing fees, as most of the listing in the US is basically free of listing fees. The key for a token to be listed in the US is first to be noticed by one or more US-based exchange, enough that they would be they would engage man days and resources in doing the due diligence, which is a very tedious, a very lengthy process, and also a very costly process for them. Also, let's just suppose that Coinbase is currently doing the due diligence work for the RC token. I wouldn't even know it, as they do that in a very independently manner and without ever contacting the project. I personally know actually one project who submitted the Coinbase listing form about 2 years ago, and finally they got listed very recently, but without knowing anything about it or without receiving any formal notice at any point in time. And what's funny as well is that when the project realized that token was listed on Coinbase, they noticed that the token logo was actually an old version, the one that was uploaded 2 years ago. And they kind of rebranded in between. So that's to say how the process is strict and how strict is the regulation in the US. And in order to not lose the license and comply with the law, US-based exchange have to be very cautious and strictly follow the process. So, and actually looking at the direction and the path that regulation is taking right now in the US, I'd say that ideally, the process shouldn't actually be the result of a centralized organization pushing for the listing. And that's actually one criteria that helps differentiate even further a security token from a utility token from the SEC point of view. And so that could be like one advantage. Adrien mentioned DAO. So that could be one advantage that the DAO would bring on the table, for instance, bringing a bit more decentralization. So to wrap this up, I'd say that yes, listing in the US is very strategic to us. I'll keep you posted when I get some progress, of course. And I'd say that the more I work on it and the more I think that the community probably has a role to play to increase the chance to make that happen.
Thank you, Victor. So I'll move on and change the subject away from the RLC token for a moment. So this one is a current topic. You made a message about COVID-19 and the virus. Is there anything iExec can contribute? There was a few people asking about it. Who would like to talk about that? Gilles?
Yeah, so I didn't remember I talked about COVID-19. So actually, yeah, what happened is that basically a little more than 2 months we started to work with some former researcher colleagues at INRIA and CNRS, and we submitted actually one research grants. You know, all these fuzz about contact tracing, etc., etc. So here the idea was how a platform like iExec, what it could bring to the table in terms of privacy, trusted execution, etc. In this scope. We also answered the call from the Ministry of Defense in France. So unfortunately, none of them have been accepted. That's still a work going on. At the moment, I can't really tell you what will be the perspective for that. But I think it's really important to inform people about alternatives. At the moment, there is basically one solution, which is this sort of Bluetooth decentralized tracking, kind of. I think we can have things that are really more powerful, that gives more control to the users over their data and how their data are going to be used. Basically, as mobility data to be used by scientists for the purpose of tracking the epidemic, and that's typically the kind of things you can do with iExec. And this kind of solution at the moment is not known at all. And I think can be the kind of solution people are designing to address the issue of tracking the pandemic and these kind of things. But that's still very prospective.
Okay, thank you, Gilles, for this insight. Okay, I'm just going to try. So Gilles, we'll keep it with you. So there was a couple of questions on our work in the consortiums. So yeah, notably Avalon, EEA, the Confidential Computing Consortium. So can you explain iExec roles or any updates from the consortiums?
Yeah, so as you know, we are members of several consortiums. Some are very important. So in particular, we have been very active in the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, so which is a consortium that gathers several hundreds of companies and that is pushed by really big players like Microsoft, Intel, JP Morgan, and so Consensus and so forth. So on this front, I think that so this year we are going to have a new version for the trusted ocean computing spec. We have been a contributor in this spec. Concerning Avalon, we will probably deliver a use case based on the Avalon stack this semester or maybe in next year. Also, things are evolving in the confidential computing consortium. And here we may have some contributions in the coming months, but at the moment, nothing is really decided. These are things that are still being discussed. But yeah, this semester was not that active. Next semester and beginning of next year, there will probably some clear contribution from iExec. But there will be communications about that. Don't worry. We are still very active in this consortium.
Perfect. Thanks, Gilles. Okay, the next one's asking about a specific partnership with EDF update. Will the partnership be moving forward? This seems like a very solid approach to adoption. So there's been a lot of rumors recently. There was a French article that came out that mentioned some work specifically with EDF. It didn't mention iExec specifically, but it was strongly suggesting. I would just like to say that to be patient on this one. We're not going to announce anything in advance before it's ready. So if you're thinking about EDF and partnerships like that, stay tuned. But we won't announce anything specific in advance. Yeah, that's. The next question is asking about the ADO or ADO or the Alliance of Decentralized Oracles. Adrien, you were participating in the call this week. Could you give an insight into the ADO?
Yeah, well, to anybody that wants to know more about the ADO, first I would encourage you to watch a replay of the talk we had with our partners or on Wednesday. So I say partner, I mean, don't take it too large. It's just a Telegram group. Basically, it's a bunch of people. We met at many conferences, at DEF CON in particular, also more recently in Denver, in ETH Denver. And the thing is, we realized that there has been movement earlier in this ecosystem to standardize the way callbacks can be done, Oracle calls can be done. This functionality was implemented by iExec, but we were the only one to do it, so it was not that useful. And so they wanted basically to discuss how we could build a mechanism for application to connect with various Oracle systems, like in a transparent way, which will also allow for the aggregation of data coming from different Oracle providers. This is a movement we started to do on our own with the price feed that you might know about. It was released, I think, almost a year ago right now. And basically, it was taking the work we did with the price feed and try to standardize it in a way that would fit all these Oracle providers. This work has been working pretty well. We have a standard that we are going to push through the community. So obviously we will update the iExec price feed, but we will do it at the same time as V5, because as we are modifying our contract, we will have to update the price feed anyway. So we will have both birds with just one stone, and we'll make that compatible with the ADO. So this doesn't really change iExec strategy with oracles and serving the blockchain in general. It's just a way to make sure we are able to reach more potential user for our Oracle systems. When you comply with a standard like this one, obviously this means that people that are using you could start using a competitor, but also people that were using a competitor could start to use you. So I think it's a win-win, because in the long run, this will make iExec be part of a broader community of Oracle providers, and people will not use values coming from a single provider. Even if they are very secure, they will add more security on top of that by aggregating multiple providers, and we want to be one of those.
Thank you, Adrien. So sticking maybe to the same subject a little bit more general, there was someone asking, is there any serious developments on Oracle since April 2019? So I imagine that was the V3 when we first announced decentralized oracles. Any updates from that, guys? Victor, maybe?
Yeah, maybe I can say a short word on this. So yeah, the Oracle market is developing quickly. I'm convinced that it will become a cornerstone of the blockchain ecosystem. Just yesterday, actually, we've seen a move from Coinbase into that market, which confirmed the importance of that segment, but at the same time makes it a bit more competitive, and it's clearly not a big market for now. So we've launched the first version of iExec Oracle back in April 2019. At that time, actually, Chainlink and others weren't deployed on mainnets yet, so we were kind of very early. As you know, that apart from the Oracle vertical, the exec team is working on many other use cases in parallel. And that explains why few resources are allocated to business development and were allocated over the last year. Still, we managed to make some important progress. So as Adrien mentioned, we joined the Alliance of Decentralized Oracles to work on common standards, which is very important. Second, we've teamed up with Chainlink to produce a very innovative solution to serve the needs of the next generation of smart contracts. And it was really great cooperating on this with the guys at Chainlink. But even though we anticipate the Oracle needs to grow in complexity, well, short-term needs currently are mostly centered around the price feed. And this is why we recently partnered with Kaiko to launch the iExec price feed that was first presented at ETHCC in Paris. And following that, we've been contacted by many DeFi projects. Most of them are not launched on mainnet yet, but I'd say we are optimistic on the chance to onboard a few of them. So stay tuned.
Thanks. Good question here. What are the main challenges iExec is facing right now?
Well, if I can jump on that one, I'd say user adoption. We realize it's not that hard to get providers to join the platform. I mean, we just had the question earlier: how can I join the platform with my Android phone? Really, what we need is people that will request run on this platform, and people will trust this platform with their sensitive data. This is why we are really focusing on improving, not just building fancy features that only the tech guy understands, but really focusing on the needs of our potential users and building a product that corresponds to a need, building a better market strategy to basically grow organically.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. There's one that's quite linked to this. What is our short-term adoption strategy? So, yeah, in the short term, Gilles, can you make a comment on that one?
Yeah. So as Adrien mentioned, really the issue now is to have a user using the platform. Okay, and by user, we're also meaning developers, of course. And as you can understand, there can be different kind of developers. One that comes to the platform because he used to use Amazon C2 and now he's looking for something cheaper to execute his application, etc. So one thing that is really important to understand, I think, is that at the moment the platform is too complex to be used by someone who has zero knowledge about crypto or about decentralization or these kind of things. And that's the case for most of the cloud users, for instance. So what was the question? I forgot. Yeah, so short-term strategy. So the short-term strategy is really to propose to each kind of developers kind of developer experience where they can understand the value proposition that is relevant for himself without any prior knowledge of iExec. So basically, we're going to ease the onboarding process. You know nothing about iExec, you're an Amazon EC2 user. What we're going to show you is one way to execute your application, using a set of cloud of worker pools, and you would be able to select the cheapest one to execute your application. And for doing that, you don't need to understand what is iExec, understand all the the concepts behind iExec. You don't need to have crypto. You don't need anything. And that's a first user experience. It's something really simple. And after that, if you are convinced by the approach, then we will give you more and more knowledge so that you can take advantage of the platform, using all its features. So this is the role of the iExec Academy, which is to be launched this year. And here we will kind of gather all the knowledge for developers to understand and use the platform, build their own program, build their own dApps, etc.
Okay, another one for Gilles, maybe. Examples of existing iExec customers, if we're already working with anyone, could you give any examples?
So to give you an example, this year we signed with NCTU, that's a university in Taiwan, a really big, an important university. And basically we are giving them some expertise about trusted compute. It's a use case that involves IoT and blockchain, these kind of things. We have several other deals in the pipeline, but honestly, the situation doesn't help to close the deals. But still, I mean, the offer for, what we call iExec for enterprises is quite new, and we are just starting to, actually look for customers and try to sell them the platform. So I hope we'll have better news in the coming months.
Perfect. So the next question is, when will you present a new user experience? So what is our priority with user experience? Maybe someone from the tech team, Adrien?
Yeah, so as I said just before, we are focusing on what we call personas. Personas are what we vision as potential user of iExec. So this could be someone coming from the traditional cloud infrastructure that would want to move to a more decentralized solution. And we have to emphasize on what our value proposition is, what our key benefits are in terms of security of data sets, for example. Another persona could be someone building smart contracts and needed to access off-chain computation. So our work on user experience will be focused on this, and there are a few of these personas. It goes also to the request to the provider of computing resources and data sets as well. So we are trying to focus on the needs of this persona and build a custom user experience for each and every one of those. And there is no perfect user experience that we're going to achieve. It's just they are like different persons that have needs, and we are going to address those needs on a point-to-point basis. Maybe there is something right now we can do for this persona that is having a hard time with the platforms, and yeah, sure, we will focus on that and build small steps. So not big version like we used to do, version 4, version 5, smaller iteration. Maybe Jill, you want to talk about that? Smaller iterations for different persons. This is also changing the way we are working internally.
So exactly, as much as Adrien mentioned, it changes a lot in the way we are, working and the way we elaborate our future development. So for instance, one thing that struck us is when you have a persona, each persona can have different level of understanding of the platform. So you could have cloud developers that are really, very good at their job and they can understand very quickly things, but still they don't know nothing about crypto. And when you're giving them the interface we have, the marketplace UI, this is way too complex. This is too many informations and information that are too different that are too different compared to the way they are used to use Amazon C2, for instance. So either we change this UX UI, or what we do, and that's our approach, is to give them some sort of levels. So when you enter the platform at the beginning, we assume that you don't know nothing about iExec and you know nothing about crypto, but still you want to understand what's the value of this platform for you. I'm used to render movies. I want to understand, okay, I'm Pixar. I want to understand what iExec can do for me. And then after that, once they understand that, then we can give them more knowledge about the platform. Oh, by the way, there is a token. You can buy it. Oh, look, there is another book. The price can vary. You can put orders, buy or sell orders, etc., etc., etc. Or you can construct your order. You can whitelist, blacklist. You can advertise your digital asset on the blockchain, etc., etc. The platform is powerful, but somehow it's too much powerful for someone that is discovering iExec. At the moment, if you go on iExec, if you look at the documentation, there's really a lot of things. It's hard to understand, and the usage of the platform is, there are so many possible usages. So we have also to clearly explain people what can be done with iExec. Ideally, we would have something like a cookbook, for instance. I can do that using this and this feature. But I can talk for hours.
Thank you, Gilles. Okay, so I've got another question here. When can we see paid moderators? So it's talking about the international community managers. Yeah, so this is talking about paying moderators in the community. So yeah, I think I can answer this one. Over time, we've kind of developed, well, we've observed that in some countries it can be much more challenging to develop a community. So at the moment, we're working on kind of redefining our priorities based on adoption potential within these countries from developers, yeah, companies and investors, of course. It's something we're currently reviewing at the moment as we move into an adoption stage. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting suggestion. Okay, I've got some more technical questions for Adrian. So talking about the sidechain, so this was the sidechain released with iExec v4, allowing us to trade with 0 fees on the iExec marketplace. Someone is asking specifically, who will be the initial sidechain validators?
So then the question is, who are because sidechain validators are already there. So for now, validators are owned and controlled by iExec. It's our machines that are running the infrastructure. So of course, as discussed in version 4, we want to somehow open that to our partners that have stake in the game, and maybe to the community as well. But it's a very difficult and tedious process. The thing is, one of the key values of the sidechain is that it's free, that you can use it very easily. And so it's not powered by fees by the user, and also the supply of token remains fixed. So there is no minting. Like on mainnet on Bitcoin or Ethereum, when someone builds a new block, they create new assets, a new Ether. We cannot do that because the supplies of RLC is fixed. So for now, we are running the validators, and the validators are just a sunk cost. They are useful for the community, but the validators themselves don't make any money. And building incentives around running a validator is essential to keeping security when you decentralize it. Because what happens if we let the community create validator? If there is nothing at stake, what prevents someone from creating 10 validators and get a majority of the platform and then behave poorly? Well, basically nothing. So we would need them to stake assets, which is possible. But if they stake assets to run the platform, they will definitely expect some reward. Where are we going to get the reward? There is no fee on this sidechain, and there is no way we're going to mint new token for them. So we have to think about what it means in terms of security to open it to the community and to our partners. Surely it's something that we want to do at some point, but it's definitely not something that is easy to do. And so we are still working on it.
Okay. So moving on to the next question. Okay, it's about quite a specific working partner. Are we still doing anything with Fortanix?
So I hope I would have asked, I would have liked Lei to be able to tell us more about SGX because he's the expert on that. But to the best of my knowledge, I think we're not working with Fortanix anymore. We are working with Scone extensively for our SGX infrastructure. And also we are working with Intel and other partners using like the new version of Graphene that is going to support SGX hardware. So it's a derivative from what used to be a Graphene NG. I think this was the name. No, it's just Graphene led by Intel. And we are still experimenting with this. The thing is, enclaves are pretty new to this ecosystem. Anything you might see out there that contains enclaves is development. So it takes time to understand how things work and how we can make them compatible with our platform. Changing enclave provider is not something easy. It requires us to rewrite a lot of software. So for now, we are working with Scone that are been our partner since day one with SGX. And we are also experimenting with other technology, but I think Fortanix is not one of those we're experimenting with anymore.
Okay. You were at the MFT conference in New York City recently. So why NFTs on iExec? Why the need for unique tokens? What would they represent?
I think it
on
was
iExec?
a reference to, I was in a conference in New York just before ETHCC, one of the last travel we were able to do. I mean, our presence in that kind of conference and our work with NFT, I think is essential for two reasons. First one is we really want to show our expertise in blockchain technologies, in secure computing, and there is no other way to show. I mean, I think it's an essential way for us to show expertise and to go to conferences, meet people, discuss our vision, our understanding, and this is how you build partnership. This is how you get great idea. You don't get great idea at the office. At the office, you implement the idea you had before, but to get great idea, you need to talk with the community. This is one of our reason we were at this conference. Also, why do you need NFTs in iExec? But the thing is, we also want this new version, V5, to be future-proof, and this means to be interoperable. And the thing is, standards for NFT are now everywhere. ENS domains are NFTs. It's not just CryptoKitty anymore. It's basically everything that you can trade. And for us, it made a lot of sense, since we've got assets that have a value, to be present in a way that they can be traded. This is obviously true of application, dataset, and worker pool. It will also be true of the result of computation. At some point, the result of your computation will be a dataset. It will have ownership properties. You will be able to sell it. And if someone acquires it, maybe it's able to monetize it. So not only do they have an intrinsic value, but they're also able to generate revenue. And having them NFT means they can be used as collateral to do loans. And so there are many, many great opportunities that we don't see yet, but that I'm sure will arrive in the future, thanks to this very neat trick that, they are no longer just iExec assets. They are bigger than that. They are NFTs.
Thanks, Adrian. So I had another question, which was talking about use cases, potential use cases for iExec. I think the example given was Blender. Please explain how the cost of computation affects potential use cases. So an insight from anyone there?
Well, if you can execute an iExec at a cheaper price than executing on a cloud provider, I mean like Amazon EC2, then of course computation are less expensive and that's more competitive. But once again, I say it again for those who maybe don't know iExec well enough. We don't fix the price for computation. It's the providers that sell their resources through iExec. So we have zero influence on the actual price for computation. One thing that is really important is that since December, when we deliver this new version of iExec that is relying on a sidechain, and as Victor mentioned, there is no cost now there is no extra cost for doing computation. So there is no, on mainnet you have to pay for transactions when you were to execute something on iExec, and that was making the platform not competitive enough. And so now this overhead don't exist anymore. And so I think that anyone that comes with a competitive offer compared with traditional cloud providers can actually sell their resources without any competitive disadvantage. So that's a great milestone.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a competitive edge of iExec. Okay, next question. Can we expect to see iExec create more use cases and videos similar to Shift's work? Okay, yeah. So with Shift, Shanghai Institute of Fog Technology, we did demo a lot of potential use cases, quite exciting use cases with robots and whatnot. That was a great way to kind of showcase adoption and real use cases. Now we've got something very similar in the works, actually. We'll aiming for it to be a monthly thing. And that may involve bounty funding for projects, a bit similar to what we did with the DAP challenge. But it will just be basically showcasing regularly use cases in the same way we did with Shift, but from different developers and different companies. The first one we've got lined up is a well-known company, so you've got that to look forward to. Also, someone in the chat was asking about Intel. Specifically, yes, we can expect some more interesting content and demo use cases coming from the work between iExec and Intel. So that will be coming, showcasing a POC in specific from Intel. But yeah, as I said, we have got a program for showcasing dApps and use cases coming up, similar to Shift. So I'll move on to the next question. What are the job positions iExec is hiring for? Will you hire remote employees or contractors? What teams? So what kind of team size can we imagine from iExec?
So we plan to be around 25. As you know, some has left the company last year. At the moment, we have a new DevOps, Damien, joining the team very recently, I think now, in the coming days. An experienced guy who's really, really strong. We're looking for a security engineer for helping with SGX developments. We also know that Baptiste will join our team as a permanent guy, as biz dev and growth hacking guys, as I would say, growth hacking superhero. There will also be some changes, I think, regarding product management. That was a task that was not well identified enough in the in terms of human resources, and we are going to shuffle the team, reorganize things. At the moment, no remote employees besides doing community management. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Gilles. Let's see what we have next. Yeah, join us. So don't hesitate to send through your resumes. Lending is a strong incentive for holders these days. What's the plan to incentivize people to hold the RLC token?
I can answer that one.
Okay, we're waiting for Victor to fix a technical issue here. He's disappeared for a second. Just bear with us one moment. If he doesn't come back, we can move on to another question. We don't hear you, Victor.
Sorry, there was
yeah, there.
Can you hear me now? So, yeah, the question was about lending the tokens. So yeah, with the I think with the blockchain ecosystem maturing, there is a growing number of new ways to put your RLC tokens to work. The most obvious one being, of course, to use them to start a worker. But I also suggest RLC holders to look at a new trend that is getting a lot of traction in 2019, which is liquidity pool. So the most famous example is probably Uniswap liquidity pool, where anyone who holds RLC and its equivalent in ETH can start to earn a share of the trading fees. And for each single trade made on Uniswap, in the same, in a similar architecture, there is also Bancor, who released a version 2 of their exchange protocol. There is a very new player in the space by the name of Matcha, made by 0x. That's just being announced. There is also Mesa by Gnosis, who are about to be launched, and who are taking kind of the same approach as Uniswap. So if you have more than ETH and RLC, if you have like some other tokens, you can even, I recommend you to check out the latest DeFi project named Balancer, where they have multi-token liquidity pool, which is very, very interesting. And also one word about the Hummingbird program. The RLC token is one of the 4 tokens to be part of the liquidity program campaign run by the Hummingbird team, who are experts in market making. And the campaign has a total reward pool of $9,000 that is distributed to the participants who run their market making bot, at the condition that they have inventory of RLC tokens, of course. I actually wrote a detailed article about each of these solutions, so I warmly recommend you to check it out.
Yeah, go check out the article on our Medium blog, in the RLC token series. It's called "How to Put Your RLC Tokens to Work." So interesting alternatives of what you can do with your RLC tokens. And I'll have a look at the questions again. Okay, Victor, I'll let this one with you. Would the team consider a VC investment from Andreessen Holdings, A16Z, who would inject significant capital? Okay, so it's basically asking on the situation with VCs. Would we accept funding, or is there any work in that area?
Yeah, definitely. So while the company is actually not selling its equity for now, it's not something we're considering. We are totally open to token investment. So the kind of deal we could come up would be for a VC to purchase a quantity of token, RLC token from the project, lock it for a certain period of time, during which they would assist and advise the project. We actually came close to an agreement at some point last year, but another project doing kind of similar cloud computing thing made it into the VC portfolio in the meantime. So we didn't go further. Talking specifically about Andreessen Horowitz, it's actually quite easy to find their email address and kind of send them the pitch deck. But I'd say that these folks mostly work based on recommendation. So if you happen to know a VC who is serious in blockchain, I'd be happy to formally introduce the iExec project to him. Well,
thanks, Victor, for that. Interesting one. So a question: when we will receive a formal enterprise staking formula? So maybe a little bit early for that, but if anyone would like to say a word on the staking.
Yeah, I can say a word. So regarding staking and the iExec protocol, I understand that the community pays much attention to how the iExec enterprise customers will benefit the RLC token economic, and that's very important. That's something that is important to us. I think that currently there is no correct answer for that now, as it's only when we have onboarded the first enterprise customers that will be able to share with the community a very clear figure. So stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, we are actively working at solving any legal concerns that could arise from enterprise customers that have or that will have to manipulate RC tokens. And I expect to be able to report good progress on this aspect in the few coming months. So hopefully sooner than later, and stay tuned for coming updates on this.
Okay, thanks, Victor. I'm just going to take a question from the chat that was asking about the consensus baseline protocol. Although iExec is not actively working on that at the moment, it is open source, so we could very well contribute to it if we would like. I know that we have quite a lot of expertise that might come in handy, but it's not something we're working on at the moment. I'm just having a look, see if we have any other questions on the chat, sorry. When will we see quarterly AMAs? And there's a suggestion of monthly fireside chats with executives, business leaders, and other digital media content. So yeah, we're certainly, this won't be the last AMA question and answer session we'll be doing. We'll look to do quarterly ones, certainly biannually. But quarterly would be good. It's kind of all about timing. If we have something big coming up, or we've just had a main release, yeah, it's nice to have a focus for the AMAs, but quarterly sounds good. For other digital media content, it has been it's kind of been a difficult time to arrange anything like that, given the circumstances. But the team has always got plenty of ideas. We loved working with the agency Tease It for the kind of epic V4 presentation that we did a few months back. So we can't wait to get back into that. Team interviews and things like that will definitely be happening. I read this earlier. The fireside chat style format is extremely interesting. It is kind of difficult to find the time when we're kind of on intensive kind of business development side of things, but we'll consider it. It could be a nice kind of podcast sort of format where we have a discussion with someone, maybe in the same industrial field and things like that. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions for that side of things, certainly fire them over. We'll be happy to consider them. But don't worry, there'll be plenty more video content and things coming back when we can all be together and we can pull out the cameras and we can start writing content again. So if we don't have any further questions, okay, yeah, maybe this could be an interesting one. At the moment, which other crypto projects do you admire, and or who would you like to work with? Adrien, who are you looking at the moment?
Oh, there are so many.
Of course, yeah.
I'd say Uniswap version 2 of Uniswap is out pretty soon. I'm sure there are some good synergies with iExec. In another field, like I love universal login, just rebranded. I love POAP, the NFT tokens when you go to conferences. I love the ENS, obviously. There are many projects I really like. Follow me on Twitter if you want to know more.
Yeah. Thanks, Adrien. Okay, so I think we can maybe close it there. As ever, we're always happy to answer your questions. It's nice to do it in a format where we can kind of address everyone like this. But it doesn't mean that we're not taking questions all the time. So we've obviously got our Telegram and our Slack channel. Slack is probably the easiest way to get in touch with individual team members. There's the tech support channel, and of course, just for general information on roadmap and things like that, we're still happy to give our insights and current ongoing projects. If you have anything to share with us that you think that we could be interested in, don't hesitate to do that. But yeah, it was great to do another question answer. The time kind of flew by there. If there's any other comments from any of you guys for now, or are we all good? I think we're okay. So thank you everyone for participating. As I said, if there's anything else, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Yeah, and keep an eye out on our website for updates. Yeah, I can't wait to get back into the office so we can start working together properly.
Yeah, everyone, and see you